So over the last couple of years, the Yorkshire Dales National Park, through the wildlife team, has been involved in a wildlife project collaborating with the North and East Yorkshire Data Centre looking after Waxcaps. And this project involved putting on a number of training sessions aimed at all levels, from kind of beginner through to more experienced surveyors. So that's looking at helping train up kind of citizen science surveyors to go out and look for some of these waxcap rich grasslands. And then in addition to that, we arranged for some surveys of sites where we suspected there might be waxcap rich grasslands, some of which were identified through the Waxcap app and Waxcap Watch. It's nice and straightforward. It's aimed at people that might not have specialist knowledge of these species. All you need to do is kind of have an idea of what a waxcap looks like, but not be able to identify it to species level. The app asks you what colours they are, so that's something that's really easy and quite accessible for a range of people to use. Waxcaps have been highlighted in our own nature recovery plan as some priority area of work in terms of mapping and surveying these habitats so we have a better understanding, and waxcaps have also been picked out as species in a couple of the local nature recovery strategies which cover the Yorkshire Dales National Park. So we think that this landscape could be a really important area for waxcap rich grasslands. Waxcaps thrive in permanent pasture that's unfertilised grassland and has a short sward, so grazing can have a key role in that, whether that's with cattle or with sheep. It's having that short sward that allows the waxcaps to come up in the autumn and thrive. And so the farming history of the Yorkshire Dales National Park means that we have an abundance of that type of habitat across this landscape. But really we want to understand more about this special habitat and the waxcap species that we find in these habitats, particularly because the habitats that you can find waxcaps in can often appear relatively botanically uninteresting at other times of the year. So they might be less species rich, say in the summer, and they could get overlooked. And particularly when it comes to things like tree planting, where we might be altering that habitat, we want to have a good idea of where these already waxcap rich habitats are so that we can protect them. So initially at this stage we focused on using results from the Waxcap app, which the North and East Yorkshire Data Centre helped us with. So that can be surveys submitted by a landowner or a farmer or a member of the public, say if they spot waxcaps while they're out walking on footpaths. And that was really important in helping us identify some of those potentially waxcap rich sites. We did also have some where the landowner themselves had flagged that they thought that they had a good assemblage of waxcaps on their land. And there's also a little bit that you can do from kind of a desktop angle in terms of what we know already about the kinds of areas that might support waxcap rich grasslands. So another reason why we're interested in kind of getting a better idea of where these habitats are and understanding more about them is with a view to the future and possible funding sources in the future. So if we have an idea of the kind of distribution of these habitats, we have an idea of land holdings that might be eligible for those funding options. Detail on that is still kind of yet to come, but the exciting thing about it is it would be payment for continuing to do what you're already doing. So it's about continuing to graze, continuing to manage that permanent pasture rather than introducing any changes. But looking forward, it's all about kind of spreading the word and raising knowledge of these habitats so that we can use people in the landscape, whether that's members of the public or farmers and landowners, to help us identify where these habitats might be.
I'm Anthony Bradley. This is Mere Beck. It's 400 foot above sea level Bike Road and not so far off 1,000 foot when you get right at the top. So it's not a hill farm, but it's genuinely an upland farm. And it's all permanent pasture. But there's often been these waxcaps and other weird and wonderful fungi that I don't know about. Amazing things, aren't they? You don't have to know anything about them to think they appear and disappear almost like magic, don't they?
When I go out to do a survey, I want to see as many as I can on one day. So if I was going out in September, I might find one or two. It took me until the middle of October before I was actually seeing a decent number. And then as soon as we get, you know, a good hard frost, it's all over for another year. So it can be a very short window or it can be quite long. And you know, from my perspective, what we need is crap weather.
No, I don't mind rain. I don't mind rain. Yeah, I don't mind rain. It helps grass grow. As farmers, we've understood what's above ground, and we get that a pasture will grow better if it's had some muck left on it by the grazing animals that were there before and all that stuff. But this is like, I would say it's not cutting edge because it's been around for millennia, hasn't it, you know, fungi, but starting to understand its part in the nutrient cycle has been quite interesting. When I was a student we didn't talk about it. That is some time ago, mind. But, you know, and it's the fact that our understanding of what happens in soil has changed over the last, perhaps only a handful of years.
I do some work with the National Landscapes to do the survey work, but I also do surveys for farmers privately. So quite often for farmers, they might have land which is low production land, it's low nutrient, they can't raise a lot of money from it, it isn't species rich, so they can't go into one of these species rich schemes, but it might be fungi rich, and so then they could be managing that land for those fungi, because many of these fungi are on the global red list, on UK red list, and so we need to conserve them, but unless we know where they are we can't conserve them. So the first thing we need to do is do a survey, identify what's there, and then if there's a certain number, if certain criteria are met, then potentially you can go into these schemes and get some money for it. We're looking for the Czech D fungi, the symbiotic fungi. So this is one of the things that I'm looking for. This is a meadow waxcap. Oh, now we've got something else, a little brown jobby. And this is one of the entelomas. This looks like Entoloma papillatum, of which is now clandestinum, the papillate pink gill. Yeah, so the Czech D species are 5 groups of fungi which are restricted to ancient grasslands, so these old unimproved pastures, and each letter responds to a different group. So the H is for the hygrocybe, which are the waxcaps, and the C is for the clubs and corals, and these are the E, the entoloma. Look at this beauty. But this is the crimson waxcap. So this one is on the IUCN global threat list. So it's equivalent to a snow leopard.
Is that rare?
It's that threatened with extinction. Yeah. So it's not so much about rarity, but it's about the rate of decline in population. The Czech D fungi, some of them could be 1,000 years old. They will come up in the same place, not necessarily every year. They might only fruit once every 50 years. It can take a really long time. The UK is the most important global place for these kind of fungi, and these hillier areas are where they're all residing. So the Pennines, the Dales, the Lakes, North York Moors, and Nidderdale. I've got lots and lots of really good sites. Derbyshire also is really good, and Wales and Scotland. Mushrooms, without the fungi, there will be no life on the planet. You know, they are the most important thing, really. They're an integral part of our physical health and the natural world's health. They are the engineers of the world, basically. So we should care. Plants only were able to move onto land originally because they partnered with fungi. So you think of something like a lichen, that's a combination between a fungus and a plant. You know, here in this environment, we've got these trees fallen over, probably ash trees caused by a fungus, their death. But all of this wood, without fungi, would just be sat here then forever. You know, it couldn't be broken down. When the grasses die, they need to be broken down. When the dung comes out of the animal, that needs to be broken down. So all of the things that are produced through natural processes need to be brought back. The nutrients need to be brought back to feed the next generation, and it's fungi that are playing that role. So they're super important for that reason. But then also, if you look at any tree or these plants, they all have fungi associated with them. And so those fungi are helping them to make the best of a difficult situation. It's hard to find all the nutrients you need in life, and the fungi are able to bring those to the plants, because if you think of a plant root as being an appendage to interact with fungi, the fungi are spread far through the soil, and when that root connects in with one of those fungi, then it gets a much greater range and a much finer range as well, because the mycelium, which are very, very small, and this massive web have got all of these surfaces that they can do all of this work, breaking down chemicals, trading with plants. So they're essential for healthy plant life. And nowadays it's much more, we're much more aware about our own microbiome, what's going on in our guts and what an important role those bacteria are playing. They're also aware that there are loads of fungi in there, but they're much more difficult to identify. But they will be playing a similar role. So when you eat your food, the indigestible part of the food, the fibre and other things, will be being broken down by the fungi, by the bacteria, and their little kind of pharmaceutical centres, that they'll be releasing beneficial chemicals into your body which can help you with insulin control and reducing inflammation and all of these kind of things. So they're an integral part of our physical health and the natural world's health.